Let's maul in the Central Committee. Let's cringe in the Central Committee. Let's bog in the Central Committee right now.
Sorry, Chad, but I gotta comment on this more because it seems like people are taking Adam something's sides. And I can't believe it's real. I like, really? Like, if you're a lib, if you're an outright conservative or a warmonger, I get it. But like, if you're a leftist, like, Hasan is the objectively correct position. Hasan has the objectively correct position. Like, what is happening?
Has been just fucking shitting out absolute bangers. Like, they are hilarious. Throughout, like, the whole Ukraine invasion, Adam something, Mr. Train liberal YouTuber, has been just fucking shitting out absolute bangers. Like, they are hilarious. And one of his recent ones, like, was justifying nuclear war, and I just about died when I saw it. Well, not justifying, I suppose, more like trying to downplay how bad nuclear war would be to try and be like, hey, we need to, like, you know, intervene in Ukraine and start a nuclear war, because it
Has he been the source all along of the nuclear wars and bad takes? Adam is astroturfing the hell out of an imperialism, anti-imperialism thing that is happening in front of our... Oh my god. You have to watch this.
A month
3
later.
hours? Did Hasan post anything on his main channel? It's a little bit more tightly edited. I can't do a whole 3 hours on this, man. That would take me 5 hours at least. Adam said you only needed to worry about surviving your basement for 3 days in a nuclear war. Chat, how many of you grow your own food? 100% of your own food. How many of you do take any kind of prescription medication? How many of you use municipal water supplies? Here is his nuclear take. Adam something. Nuclear holocaust, not that bad. Fuck me. Why isn't he locked in a mental hospital?
Supply chains, KEKW.
Putin will be making more and more nuclear threats. The other thing he has left, those will likely be just that, threats. I doubt him or the Russian elite is suicidal. If it came to nuclear war, Russia would essentially be deleted from the face of the planet, while the West would generally survive in some form or another. First of all, this isn't even true. Russia is the largest country in the world. Russia is the largest country in the world. So if there's any country in the planet that's going to have pockets of people that aren't as affected by radiation, it's going to be in Russia. So as far as deleted from the face of the planet, a country like the UK is far more affected by nuclear strikes than a country like Russia. Although Russia would also be deleted. Why? Because the vast majority of the population lives in urban or near urban communities. They have 11 time zones in Russia. Okay? So he's just not even right about this. The population of Europe is the most vulnerable, outside of a country like Japan or South Korea, is the most vulnerable to nuclear strikes in the entire planet. Also, they depend upon imports of energy from the rest of the world and food. A disruption of the global supply chain deletes millions of people from Europe. Here's what FEMA has to say about nuclear detonations. This is for a nuclear detonation. Los Angeles has, I think, 15 or 20 nuclear detonations targeted on it. There's no surviving that. Most of our media dealing with nuclear war takes place during the Cold War. It's fictional continuation. At that point, we have enough nukes to format the planet, which we already do. We do, chat. We have that many nukes. We have thousands of nukes. We used to have tens of thousands, but we still have thousands. Why does Adam something so incredibly stupid? Meaning the nuclear war would be fought with only a fifth of the firepower. The reason why we... Okay, first of all, Adam something is a fucking moron. The reason why we had tens of thousands of nukes was to make mutually assured destruction credible, because we didn't have the early warning systems yet. We didn't have the technology for early warning systems at the level that we do now. Now we have satellites that detect rocket launches. So the moment a rocket launches anywhere in the planet, it puts out a bright flash, so bright that it can be detected from space. So we have satellites all over the fucking planet looking for rocket launches. So our early warning systems, I know most people don't know about this shit because you don't need to, because why would you? You don't need to learn about this. But when we start talking about this kind of stuff, you need to learn about it. So we have these satellite launch, we have these rocket launch detection systems. So we know immediately. So we don't need as many nukes, because before you needed tens of thousands of nukes, because if you couldn't detect the incoming strikes, your warning was the nuclear detonation. So if you want to have a strategic response, a retaliatory strike, then you need to have tens of thousands of nukes to ensure that a certain percentage of them survive the initial blasts so that you can counterstrike. So for mutually assured destruction to be credible, you have to say, I have all these nukes and there's no way for you to do a nuclear first strike and take them all out. Then, as the Cold War continued on, we signed treaties to reduce the strategic stockpile on both sides. And we had early warning systems. We signed mutual supervision programs. There in Vienna, there is the nuclear regulatory, treaties that go and inspect various nuclear facilities. So we try to make sure that we are bound within these START and SALT treaties. Okay, but we still have thousands of nukes, and they're thermonuclear. They are fusion bombs, which are 20, 30 times at least more powerful than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We have thousands of them. Thousands. You're not surviving that, man. You're not surviving that. You are not going to survive that. Here's a basic explanation to how to survive a nuclear bomb. If a nuclear detonation occurred in an American city, it would be one of the worst, most catastrophic incidents the United States has ever experienced. Responders must be prepared to address the unique challenges of a nuclear response. With careful planning, many of most, if not most, lives can be saved. After a detonation, a single detonation, not a strategic nuclear strike. This is on a 10 kiloton and smaller year detonation. Oh God, this is not... We have 500 kiloton MIRV missiles. I've talked about this before. They're 50 times stronger than this planning document. Guidance also considers nuclear devices delivered by ballistic missile or aircraft, which deliver detonations elevated in the air. Air bursts and increase the scale of the blast and thermal damage. No significant federal response will be at the scene for 24 hours. The full extent of federal assets will not be available for several days. So this is for a 10 kiloton bomb, right? Okay, this is okay. Here is the planning guidance scenario. Here's 100 kilotons, which is still smaller than most nukes. I have to go through all these scenarios for this to be useful for chat, but covered in the last, the nuclear death cult is really strange and misguided. Even a limited nuclear conflict has nasty repercussions we will see from isolated tests of a nuclear weapon. After you see the U.S. response to COVID or Katrina, how do you think we would survive a nuke? We wouldn't! The second part is where he references Fallout as a source. If it came to nuclear war, Russia would essentially be deleted, blah, 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 blah. At that point, we don't have enough nukes to format the planet. He's wrong about this. Almost not, as nukes are ICBMs. Many of them can't even be deployed unless you haul it above a city with a plane. Okay. How many ICBMs does Russia have? According to a fact sheet by the U.S. Bureau of Arms Control, the U.S. has 665 deployed ICBMs, including ones launched from submarines and deployed heavy bombers, while Russia has 527. According to the Federation of American Scientists, Russia and the U.S. each have 4,000 stockpile nuclear warheads. Each. And those missiles, we have what's known as the Peacekeeper missile. And we have the Minuteman missile. So the Peacekeeper was the one that had 10 MIRVs. The missile could carry up to 12 Mk-21 re-entry vehicles, although treaty limited to 10. Each armed with a 300 kiloton W-887 warhead. So this missile has 10 nukes that are 300 kilotons. Now, we don't use the Peacekeeper anymore. We just use the Minuteman, which is the missile we use now. Which has 4. The Minuteman carries 4. And we have Trident's ballistic missile submarines. All right, let me see if we can find this. 1,000 Minuteman missiles were deployed. This force has shrunk to 400 Minuteman 3 missiles as of September 2017, deployed in missile silos around blah, 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 blah. Minuteman 3 will be progressively replaced by the ground-based strategic deterrent ICBM beginning in 2030. Oh, great. I think they have 4 if I'm right about this. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but that was what it was for a while. Missile gap, Polaris. I don't want the history. I want the warhead. Okay. So they just have a single warhead now, or do they have multiple? Okay, they're still with a single warhead. Minimap 3 remains fitted with a single warhead. The United States prefers to keep its MIRV deterrents on submarine-launched tridents. Okay, there you go. So the trident has the MIRV. Okay, cool. This is the one that has... Oh, okay, cool. So they because of a peace treaty, because of an arms control treaty with Russia, they changed our ballistic missiles to single 300 kiloton. So that's a deleted city for each rocket. So that's good. This Adam something person makes some very poor arguments. His idea seems to be that nuclear war would destroy Russia, but the West would survive in some form or another. Even if it's true, it's not. Russia is still a massive threat to us. Getting nuked means we have to live nasty, brutish, and short lives in a Fallout 5, the IRL game. I mean, not only is it dumb, it's wrong. I showed you guys the targeting maps. You get deleted. Anywhere worth going is deleted. And when I say anywhere, I mean like Cleveland gets nuked 3 times. Okay? The capital of America is like Bakersfield. Actually, I think Bakersfield catches a nuke too. Another thing to consider is how these strikes will be distributed. Russia has to blanket the whole of Europe and the US, possibly more, while the West only has to strike Russian strategic targets. Has to blanket the whole of Europe and the US. Every single city getting hit with one nuke literally ends our society. And then nuclear power plants lose cooling and we have 50 meltdowns happening all over the fucking country. You know, there's something called a nuclear power plant, which has to operate because it needs a huge industrial society to keep the fuel rods cool. As far as I know, that's bullshit. 48 hours after the strike, the radiation will have already gone down by 99%. And at 72 hours, it should be safe to come out. For one bomb, Adam! Also, it depends on whether they're ground burst or air burst munitions and what's going on with the weather and all sorts of other shit. But they're hitting the ground out in North Dakota and Wyoming. They're hitting the center of America with ground burst nukes so they could take out our strategic nukes, which leads to a massive smear of fallout that circles the globe. Food and drink in closed containers that were inside during the strike. Oh, do you have food and water for the rest of your life inside containers? Your chances of survival aren't bad. If the bomb wasn't dropped directly on you, you can stick it out in the basement of 3. I legitimately think he may be one of the dumbest people that's ever lived. Chernobyl is still radioactive 36 years later. Of course it is. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Wouldn't be that bad, right? That's kind of the angle that he's going for. Like, you shouldn't fear nuclear war that much because apparently what's more important than that is helping Ukraine. Here it is. This is what I was talking. It is off the rails. Like, just some of the things that he says here are so ridiculous. It's almost unbelievable. Hold on.
If you look at Adam something and take his side, you are irredeemably stupid. And from what I understand, is it true that like the Pepe laws are on Adam something's side? Is that actually true?
make myself smaller so you guys can actually see this. I'm tiny now. I'm a small boy. I'm just a small boy. Ooh woo. Let's talk about nuclear war. As the invasion falls.
Okay. Let's do Philadelphia. Here I am, okay? Let's do which one? What how about we drop the SS-25 currently in Russian arsenal. We'll do a air burst and we're going to see casualties and radioactive fallout. All right, let's go. Oh, let's also look at the crater. So it's estimating my deaths. It says 537,240 deaths, 843,430 injuries. There is no way that we could handle that. There's no way we could handle that. This gives a simulation for the United States over the entire course of 2 hours. Okay, we might have to look at the simulation. And this is one. In any given 24-hour period, there are an average 2.5 billion people in the light blast range of simulated detonation. So what did they drop it off? City Hall? So the crater is larger than all of City Hall? Holy shit. Bro. It also hits Camden. Papa. Camden gets fucked too. And as far as the map, this is something that I posted. This is just one nuke, chat. Here's the targeting. Let me see if I can find it. I posted Pennsylvania. This is the actual number of nukes. Chat, you could survive that. Yeah, you'll be fine, man. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 in the immediate Philadelphia area. Yeah, you'll be fine. Just chill in your basement for 2 days. You'll be cool. And as far as does Pittsburgh survive? No. This one right here pretty much hits the city dead on. And it's ringed by 7 more. Erie takes one right in the chin. Allentown and Bethlehem take 4 in the Lehigh Valley. There's like about 700,000 people that live in this section where they get 4 nukes. Scranton takes 3. Sorry, Joe. There's Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. That's another couple 100,000 down. Harrisburg takes it to the chin. The capital of Pennsylvania is now Reading. Oh wait, that's Reading taking one for the team right over here. Never mind. So yeah, that was one nuke and it kills 500,000 people. What do you think the 15 that are actually targeted does? Adam something is brain dead.
Alters, Putin will be making more and more nuclear threats, the only thing he has left. These will most likely be just that. I doubt him or the Russian elite is suicidal. If it came to nuclear war, Russia would essentially be deleted from the face of the planet, while the West would generally survive in some form or another. Oh, in some form or another, right? Like that couple billion people might die, but you know, at least the concept of the West might live on. That's a really fucking weird way of putting it, but whatever. A nuclear war right now would not be the end of humanity. It actually would. Do you know what a nuclear
Communism
winter
is based.
Like there would be nothing to fucking eat. Everyone would fucking starve to death, even those who were not directly affected by the bombs or the radiation. But it's like, sure, it would suck. And by that I mean a lot of people dying, at least 1 billion plus. However, that's a big however, my dude. At least 1 billion plus direct deaths. However, it wouldn't literally erase life from the planet. I mean, it would practically almost erase human life from the planet. You couldn't grow fucking crops. Like, the area where they could be grown would be incredibly limited. There would be no fucking way to get the food to people. You would starve to death. Billions would die in the initial explosions and from radiation and assorted sicknesses and such, and the rest would just starve to death. Even if we ignore that, like, however, like a billion plus would die. However, it wouldn't literally erase life from the planet. So I guess you shouldn't be that scared of it.
If you're in the global north, you're the richest billion, which is the targets for the nukes. It will wipe out the wealthiest people on the planet. It's people in the global south who have nothing worth nuking that are the people that are most likely to survive the first couple months of the exchange. But as far as like anybody in the west or in the global north, you're what's worth nuking. Unfortunately, Africa and South America, they take it to the chin too. It's not like they escape. But you're more likely to survive the initial blast. A normal person would say, true, it wouldn't erase all life on the planet instantly. However, billions would die, but this motherfucker thinks the other way around. Well, can you imagine can you imagine the world we'd live in if Russia controlled Crimea? So here's the two worlds. We let Russia control Crimea, and pretty much we live our lives in a modern industrial society, and we fight to make the world a better place, one bit at a time. Or we all die in a horrible nuclear fireball, but hey, at least Russia didn't initially control Crimea. I don't know. That's tight. That's a tight one. Oh, I don't know.
1 billion plus would die,
Balance.
but I guess the only thing that matters to worry about is if everyone fucking dies. Like, this honestly, like, this is someone trying to like pathologize or trying to normalize the idea of nuclear war, because they value like doing things that feel good, like helping Ukraine, over doing things that are rational, like not doing something that causes Russia to react with a nuclear attack that then spirals into global thermonuclear war. It's trying to normalize that sort of thinking, and that is not only dangerous, but fucking sociopathic, psychopathic. Like, what the fuck is this? There is no circumstance where you need to say, at least 1 billion plus would die. However, it's okay because it wouldn't erase life from the planet. I mean, climate change isn't going to literally erase human life from the planet. It'll probably erase a lot of it, but humans will still survive in much worse conditions. Does that mean that climate change isn't that bad? Like, we should be downplaying its threat? No, obviously not. This man is fucking crazy. He'll say fucking anything if he thinks that like it'll like serve what he believes to be Western interest. But I can tell you right now, buddy, global thermonuclear war is not in Western interest. And thank fucking God that senile old man Joe Biden is somehow further to the left than you, because he sees that. He's trying very hard to not give the Russians any excuse to do anything stupid. which involves not actually directly intervening in the war in any way, shape, or form.
Wait, Adam something's name used to be Bomb, but he had to change it because of TOS? Wait, really? What? What are you saying?
Even though people like Adam something are
Atom
calling
bomb?
for shit like no-fly zones and stuff, which would result in nuclear war. Like, you're further to the right than Joe Biden. You should really think about that. Like, I can't believe that Joe fucking Biden is rational compared to most of these people. It's insane. And then he goes, consider how most of our media, movies, games, etc., dealing with nuclear war takes place during the Cold War or its fictional continuation. Of course, like, his only reference point is popular media, especially video games. That's where this guy...
Actually, you know who put together a really good movie about nuclear war? It was the BBC. The BBC put... what is that movie called? BBC movie Nuclear War. What is it called? Ah, this is the movie I'm thinking of. Threads. Or is it The Day After? Yeah, this one, we watched Threads recently in Hasan's offline chat. Oh! Okay. In the city of Sheffield, Ruth Beckett and Jimmy Kemp plan to marry after learning of Ruth's unplanned pregnancy. The plot serves as a distraction to the viewer against the backdrop of a gradually escalating confrontation in Iran. The Soviet Union, fearing the return of a Shah regime following an allegedly U.S.-backed coup, occupies northern Iran, with the United States subsequently mobilizing its own forces and occupying the south, as well as increasing its naval presence in the Persian Gulf. The U.S. then deploys B-52 Stratofortress bombers to Turkey, but it learns the Soviet Union has moved nuclear warheads into Mashhad. British Army reinforces NATO forces into Western Europe. Following news of a Warsaw Pact buildup in East Germany, the President of the United States attempts to resolve the situation in Iran peacefully by proposing a joint withdrawal to the Soviet leader. The Soviets, however, ignore the ultimatum, resulting in a conventional attack by U.S. bombers on the Soviet base at Mashhad. The Soviets retaliate with a nuclear-tipped air defense missile, which in turn is countered with the detonation of an American tactical nuclear weapon over Mashhad. A naval engagement subsequently occurs in the Persian Gulf, further escalating tensions. In response, the U.S. blockades Cuba, and anti-Soviet riots break out in American cities. The government enacts the Emergency Powers Act, and local authorities are granted powers to suspend peacetime functions and confiscate property and material for civil defense purposes. The Emergency Council in Sheffield convenes in a bunker underneath Sheffield Town Hall. Though its members are severely unprepared for their emergency roles, several do not attend due to travel disruptions or a desire to remain with their families. Travel is restricted to essential services only. At 8:30 a.m., which the narrator notes will be 3:30 a.m. in Washington, D.C., explaining that the Western response will be slowest as the President of the United States and senior staff will be asleep, attack warning red is transmitted. A high-altitude nuclear explosion occurs over the North Sea, which generates an electromagnetic pulse, disabling the electrogrid and crippling communications across Britain and northwestern Europe. A ground attack then strikes NATO military targets. The detonation of mushroom cloud is seen from Sheffield, which plunges into chaos as the resulting shockwaves damage buildings. The exchange escalates with an additional nuclear missile with an estimated yield of 1 megaton, striking the Tinsley Viaduct. 3,000 megatons of nuclear weapons are deployed, with an estimated 210 dropped on Britain alone. 2/3 of Britain's residential areas are struck by firestorms. An hour following the attack, prevailing winds have sent fallout from a ground burst at Crow over the wreckage of Sheffield. Communications between local authorities are re-established, but limited due to disruptions. Fires are left to burn uncontrollably as the danger of fallout is too high. Smoke from the fires blots out the sun. A nuclear winter commences. A month later, soldiers make their way into what remains of Sheffield Town Hall, where they discover that the members of the Emergency Council have long since suffocated to death. Capital punishment is authorized by the government, whose attempts to maintain order are largely ignored by the surviving British public. Since money serves no value, food takes place as the only form of currency awarded for labor and withheld as punishment. Ten years later, what remains of Britain's surviving population has dropped to a medieval level of 4 to 11 million people. The population continues to live in barbaric squalor. Ruth dies in bed, survived by her 10-year-old daughter, Jane. Months later, Jane gives birth in a makeshift hospital, and the film ends on a silent freeze frame as she screams at the sight of her disfigured, lifeless baby. Yep. Yeah, that's the big deal, chat. See, all of Britons wouldn't die. It would only be 4 to 11 million survive. It's good. What's the big deal? What's the big deal, folks? What's the big deal?
Learns everything. It's where he gets his conception of the world. That's the case with most of these like left liberal internet personalities, is they just learned everything from fucking video games and they've never read a book before. At that point, we did have enough nukes to format the planet.
Even if you only learned from popular culture, the purpose of Fallout is to say we don't want war. That's the point. The point of the story is that it's stupid to do war with nukes. It's a criticism of our pop culture and our consumption and capitalism and warmongering and having these weapons. It's a criticism.
We still do now to format the planet, more like fucking technology terminology. God, man. However, since then, we have decommissioned 80% of our total nuclear arsenal, meaning a nuclear war would be fought with only a fifth of the firepower. That's still fucking literally like a fucking extinction event, dude. Jesus. Also, not all, as in humanity's nukes, are ICBMs.
No, you're supposed to learn to love the bomb.
Missiles. Many of them.
Unironically, that's why it's in the title. Oh my god. I found a clip of Adam Something explaining his plans. I found a clip of Adam Something. Let me show it to you.
Above a city with a plane. Many are just warheads sitting in warehouses and couldn't immediately be launched. This is especially true to Russia, as they would be deleted before any of those warheads could be used. No, they factually wouldn't. They would know when this shit is happening.
Here, chat. Adam Something has just put out a new video on how we would survive post the nuclear attack. I didn't realize he was in a wheelchair, so I apologize if don't be ableist when Adam Something explains the plan, okay? Any ableism will be not tolerated in the chat.
Mr. President, I would not rule out the chance to preserve a nucleus of human specimens. It would be quite easy. At the bottom of some of our deeper mine shafts, radioactivity would never penetrate a mine some thousands of feet deep. And in a matter of weeks, sufficient improvements in dwelling space could easily be provided.
How long would you have to stay down there?
Well, that's, cobalt thorium G. Radioactive half-life of... I would think that possibly 100 years.
You mean people could actually stay down there for 100 years?
It would not be difficult, my Fuhrer. Nuclear reactors could... I'm sorry, Mr. President. Nuclear reactors could provide power almost indefinitely. Greenhouses could maintain plant life. Animals could be bred and slaughtered. Quick survey would have to be made of all the available mine sites in the country. But I would guess that dwelling space for several 100,000 of our people could easily be provided.
Well, I would hate to have to decide who stays up and who goes down.
Well, that would not be necessary, Mr. President. Could easily be accomplished with a computer. And the computer could be set and programmed to accept factors from youth, health, sexual fertility, intelligence, and a cross-section of necessary skills. Of course, it would be absolutely vital that our top government and military men be included to foster and impart the required principles of leadership and tradition.
He was just waving, chat. Adam something was just waving to the chat, okay? Calm down.
Actually, they would breed prodigiously, eh? There would be much time and little to do. But with the proper breeding techniques and a ratio of, say, 10 females to each male, I would guess that they could then work their way back to the present gross national product within, say, 20 years.
But look here, Doctor, wouldn't this nucleus of survivors be so grief-stricken and anguished that they'd, well, envy the dead and not want to go on living?
No, sir. Excuse me. Also, when they go down into the mine, everyone would still be alive. There will be no shocking memories. And the prevailing motion will be one of nostalgia for those left behind, combined with a spirit of bold curiosity for the adventure ahead.
Doctor, you mentioned the ratio of 10 women to each man. Wouldn't that necessitate the abandonment of the so-called monogamous sexual relationship? I mean, as far as men were concerned.
Regrettably, yes. But it is, a sacrifice required for the future of the human race. I hasten to add that since each man will be required to do prodigious service along these lines, the women will have to be selected for their sexual characteristics, which will have to be of a highly stimulating nature.
I must confess, you have an astonishingly good idea there, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
I think we ought to look at this from a military point of view. I mean, supposing the Ruskies stashed away some big bomb, see, and we didn't. When they come out in 100 years, they could take over.
I agree, Mr. President. In fact, they might even try an immediate sneak attack so they could take over our mine shaft space.
Yeah, I think it'd be extremely naive of us, Mr. President, to imagine that these new developments are going to cause any change in Soviet expansionist policy. I mean, we must be increasingly on the alert to prevent them from taking over other mine shaft space in order to breed more prodigiously than we do, thus knocking us out in superior numbers when we emerge. Mr. President, we must not allow a mine shaft gap.
Sir, I have a plan. Monsieur! I can walk!
That's the classic film Dr. Strangelove. How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb or something like that is the subtitle. Excellent film. Hollywood classic. And it's surprising that Adam Something is still kicking around. I guess he got out of film and went into YouTube. So that's good. Thank you, Adam, for your proposed plan for us to survive the nuclear strike. However, you do not actually have the skills necessary to be selected to go down in the shaft. Unfortunately, YouTubers who played a lot of Fallout were not deemed to be in the category of valuable survivors. So thank you for the ideas, Adam, but you will quickly become Adam Nothing when the nuclear bombs explode.
It's not fucking difficult for Russia to send planes and drop nukes on Europe. And there's more than enough icbms to fucking kill billions of people. What the fuck are you talking about? It's like just an endless barrage of a fucking sociopath trying to justify nuclear war for some odd reason. They see like helping Ukraine, regardless of the consequences, as something that simply must be done Another thing to consider is how those strikes...
Instead, okay, so we could do a nuclear war that wipes out most of the planet. Or, here's the other alternative. Here's the intolerable alternative to people like Adam Something. We engage in international diplomacy, and Ukraine grants some concessions to Russia regarding status of neutrality and some territorial concessions in exchange for security guarantees. And we lift sanctions on Russia. Now, Russia will have gained recognition of their Crimean annexation, which would be bad for the future of global stability. But, you know what? I think we should have a nuclear war instead.
...to be distributed. Russia has to blanket the whole of Europe and the US, possibly more, while the West only has to strike Russian strategic targets. This is a guaranteed death sentence for the Russian elite, including Putin. Hence, I don't think he'll press the button, or even if he tried, he'd end up with a hole in his head. It'd be a guaranteed death sentence for everyone, buddy. Otherwise, radiation from nuclear bombs dissipates very quickly.
The point is not that from cold... Like, nobody thinks that we're going to just sit there and cold-bloodedly calculate to do a strategic strike of nuclear bombs. You understand that, right? The point is that it escalates. And because of confusion, because of a false alarm, because of a sense of personal existential threat, someone authorizes a nuclear release and it escalates out of control. That's the point, dummy. So we want to avoid that kind of possibility by not having a conflict between nuclear armed powers. Just avoid that completely.
You know how in Fallout games, of course, video games, everything is still radioactive after 200 years? As far as I know, that's bullshit. Wow, great sourcing, dude. That fucking ambulance outside, that's for you to take you and commit you to a fucking mental hospital, dude. Like, seriously. Do you know what nuclear winter is? Like, billions of people dying in the initial strikes, and as a result of them, followed by everyone else starving? Does that seem good to you? Does it seem acceptable to you? Even without the nuclear winter, just a couple billion deaths.
Yeah, we watched that. Calm Like a Tom points out. A couple days ago, we watched that one Soviet sub-commander prevented Armageddon by refusing an order based on mistake. Exactly. And by the way, the reason why he wasn't even a sub-commander, he was like an admiral or something that just so happened to be on that sub. So he overruled the officers that were on the sub. The lower level officers both wanted to nuke. And it just so happened that the senior Soviet sub commander was on that specific sub. His flag was on that sub. And he overruled the captain and political officer who wanted to authorize the nuke.
Couple billion deaths.
He was the party member. Yeah, he was the senior party member. Yeah.
This destruction of, like, most of the cities in the first world, no big fucking deal. Actually, no. He has the right idea. He has the right fucking idea. I support Adam Something. Biden, no-fly zone in Ukraine now. Nukes on all first world cities. Endless nuclear bombs in the first world. The third world shall finally prevail. Just as Posada said. Adam Something, I salute you. 48 hours after the strike, the radiation will have already gone down by 99%, and at 72 hours it should be safe to come out. The tricky part is not to be in the blast radius, or at least be in a base.
And by the way, Chad, there's all sorts, like, first of all, this is Adam Something doesn't even understand strategic nuclear strikes. They thought of that. Sometimes these nuclear strike plans have a reserve capacity that's reserved for a couple days later, and then submarines fire nukes. And things like that, like just because these long-range, deep water nuclear boomers, as they're called, they have the capacity to operate for months in the sea, and they can hold their nukes in reserve and release them later as pop-up strikes. It's the catastrophe is not just a singular event; it could go on. People have no fucking clue what they're talking about.
strike happens near you. So look, if the
There's
USA
salted bombs
intervenes
like
in
cobalt
Ukraine
bombs.
and
There's EMP. Well, exactly. There's an EMP. If they do a high, if they detonate a nuclear weapon high in the atmosphere, it causes an electromagnetic pulse, which destroys almost all electrical equipment that's unprotected. So all your computers stop working. All your cars stop working. We destroy the electrical grid. So even if your city isn't hit, there's an electromagnetic pulses that destroy modern technology. So bye-bye internet, bye-bye computer, bye-bye Fallout 3 save.
ends up giving the Russians a justification to start a fucking global thermonuclear war. It's okay, just get in the fucking basement. Sure, when you get out, billions will be dead, everything around you will be destroyed, you know, you'll be subject to radiation, everything will be on fucking fire, you'll probably be on fire too. You know, it's gonna be impossible to grow food, but you'll be alive. You have your fucking basement. I mean, you probably sit in your basement and play video games all day anyway. What's the difference? Oh, right, there's gonna be no internet. Fuck! Now that's a reason to oppose global thermonuclear war. Can't play video games anymore. No more Steam Game Newell. There you go, Adam something. I'm helping you out here. I'm trying to help you see the rational side of things. Nuclear war, no more video games. Okay? Think about it. You just gotta get into a sturdy enough building. Sure, billions will die, but he's like giving advice on how to survive a fucking nuclear strike. He's unironically giving like serious, straight-faced advice on how he thinks people should survive a nuclear strike. If you've gotten to this point, you are fucking pathologically insane. Just
First
get
of
into
all, he's assuming that we would know. Like, he's assuming that you would have a warning time. Oh, well, you know, you just find a sturdy building and blah, 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 travel around, prepare. Like, what? It would hit you while you're walking around during the day. And all of a sudden, you're blind. Assuming you're not instantly on fire.
Sturdy enough building. Stay in the middle of a sturdy enough building on the lowest floor. Don't go to the upper floors because then you might get hit by the fucking fallout. Thanks, dude. Why are you even contemplating this as an option? Why do you support actions that could result in anything resembling this outcome? You are absolutely fucking sociopathic. I can't believe he's here trying to normalize this. What is going on with these people? There's also been like a slew of Twitter posts by like liberal commentators saying basically the same thing. Like, nuclear war wouldn't be that bad. You know, I think sticking by our principles and intervening in Ukraine, the moral high ground here is more important than not destroying the entire fucking world. I just can't. To sum up, Putin will threaten with nukes, but it's unlikely he will actually use them. Even if he does, though.
So, by the way, Chad, I just stole a post from a chatter. I apologize, chatter, that said this in the chat, but I basically stole your idea and made a tweet. The people that are the most anti-slap are also the most sanguine about nuclear war. Incredible posting times we live in. The nucleus of the idea was the anti-slap thing. I can't believe Will Smith slapped Chris Rock! Prosecute him! I don't know, only 1 billion people would die in the nuclear war. Only 1 billion would die? What do you mean?
Even if he does, though, that's like, but the world won't end. Plus, your chances of survival aren't bad if the bomb wasn't dropped directly on you, and you can stick it out in a basement for 3 days. Sure.
Nuclear winter will offset global warming? True. Except everything will die, you know, from the radiation, and you know, the nuclear winter will kill everything instead.
Sure, before you fucking starve to death, especially because like all the global supply lines will be totally destroyed, so you're not going to be getting food in any way possible. So society will immediately fucking crumble. There's going to be nothing resembling anything.
I don't know about
like,
you, Chad, but I have a double osmosis water filtration system. I've got a independent electrical heating and cooling. I have geothermal. I also produce my own electricity, and I have battery backup. I also have food stored for at least 20 years. And I've got my nuclear bunker. You know, they got the bunker. So I'll be fine. You know, I don't know about you, Chad, but that's what your son Bunny went to, is making sure that I will survive the nuclear holocaust. A slap is a tragedy. A billion plus deaths is a statistic. Yeah, exactly, dude. I don't think nuclear winter will stop global warming. It's not going to remove any carbon. The only thing it will stop oil production because everyone will be dead. Yes, exactly. Also, I think everything burning might increase carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for a while.
Break, dude. Even if he does, the world won't end. And sure, you might have like a 1 in 5 chance of surviving, depending on where you are, to then die from starvation.
Can I be anti-slap and anti-nuke? I haven't seen any of those.
But you know,
I assume tier 3s are invited to the bunker. All tier 3s are invited to the bunker.
Not a big deal. I can't. This guy, he uses his community tab like a blog, and every single post is fucking sociopathic. Like, he sounds like a Redditor from 10 years ago who just likes to like epic Winnie the Pooh, Xi Jinping, communism bad. I love democracy and freedom. He sounds like that. I've said it before talking about him, but like the fact that an fucking big tech company algorithm chose this guy as like a worthy commentator to shove into our faces, and now like there's like hundreds of thousands of people who are reading
Didn't he blow up because of an anti-Elon Musk video? Wasn't that what blew up Adam something? And didn't Hasan watch it? Like, wasn't Hasan the person who blew him up? Or was it the Dubai video? He blew up after Hasan watched him. Hasan! No! I should make some of these anti-Elon videos.
Complete ridiculousness.
I wouldn't say Hasan blew him up. Obviously, the algorithm of YouTube is what really got him. But if you get catalyzed, it happens.
And apparently,
Fantastic Matt has subbed at tier 3. You now have a key card to the bunker. JW, there's a decommissioned missile base a few miles north of my hometown. Many homes have secret bunkers as a tier 3. I appreciate the invite, though. I mean, those are probably going to get hit directly.
Nodding along with it. Algorithmically chosen political commentary. It's insane. It's absolutely fucking insane. The world we live in is just fucked. God, we are screwed. Sure.
If I tier 3 and sub to Jacobin, can I get my own room? No. No. You'll be sleeping in the top bunk above me, though. The Russians actually have nuclear torpedoes that are designed to cause tsunamis. Yeah.
Billions will die.
We've looked at that.
But just no. Never. Don't ever say that. You absolutely do not got a hand.
Adam something. We watched a video of Adam something. We watched a video of him talking about commie flats and the incredible success of the Soviet housing program. I thought that was a really cool video. That was a very awesome, it was good to see someone from Eastern Europe talking about the Soviet Union, demystifying it, and talking about why so many people, had their standard of living improved. Because they built these high quality modern apartments for everyone. Like, these people were living in fucking huts with outhouses and no running water, and then they moved into an apartment with fucking like electric heat and like modern stoves and fridges and shit and running water bathrooms. And there were like Russians and crying. They thought it was the fucking future. French fry, thanks for the tier 1. He's a huge anti-communist. He says the USSR was going to join the Axis. His latest video is a direct attack on the Gravel Institute. Yeah, he's scum. He's scum now. Like, the Gravel Institute video, I watched 1 minute of it. I strongly considered watching it on stream and ripping it apart. But I was like, all right, I'm going to watch 5 minutes of this video, of the Adam something video on Gravel Institute, and see if, he's making good points. And the very first thing he did was lie. The very first thing he fucking did was lie. And so I closed it. I fucking closed it. Because I was like, fuck this shit. Fuck this shit. Now, this is like the first lie. After he got through explaining what PragerU was for the first 5 minutes of the video, Whatever the first part where it actually got to what Gravel said, the first thing he did was say it was a lie, and I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not going to put this in front of my community. I'm not going to... Fuck this. This is garbage. The video is filled with arguments based only on semantics and barely any substance. And he says that Gravel is lying. How is that guy a leftist, or the three people that support him? What the fuck makes them leftists? All right, so there's a large population of people on the internet who think that if you agree with Vaush, you are a leftist. If you have a good relationship with... There's a large percentage of people on the internet who think that if Vaush likes you, you're a leftist. It doesn't matter what any of your other positions are or things that you've done in your life. If Vaush likes you, you're a leftist. That's actually the truth. If you wanted me to be honest, there's a large population of people who think your leftism is based on whether or not you're good for the left. And what does good for the left mean? Whether or not Vaush likes you. That's it. You're bad for the left if Vaush doesn't like you. You're good for the left if Vaush does like you. That's it. Yeah. All right. Let's finish this video making fun of Adam something.
The global thermonuclear...
People outside of the US can subscribe? Yes. It's $20 if you're in Canada, and I believe $40 if you're anywhere else in the world.
War, under any circumstance. Global thermonuclear war is bad, and everything should always be taken to avoid even the minute possibility of it happening. Otherwise, you're just a fucking psycho, man. What the fuck is wrong with these liberals? Jesus Christ. God. A couple billion dead. However, I don't know what to do with these people.
However, Russia doesn't get Ukraine. However, Russia doesn't get Crimea. Well, they've occupied it since 2014. Has that affected you? Chat, serious question. How many of you have been affected negatively by the Russian annexation of Crimea? The idea that we would risk nuclear war over something that, like that, is absolutely absurd. To the point where I can't believe it's real. Joke's on you. Russia can't get Crimea if nation states don't exist anymore. Exactly.
NATO intelligence sources report a massive buildup.
External post checked on. The president is presently in direct communication.
Three Soviet tanks deployed.
Current world intelligence situation, and we might pay particular note to the nuclear submarines off the east and west coasts.
Having already captured NATO advanced positions.
Hey, any of you guys hear anything about an alert?
I really don't think either side wants to be the first to use a nuclear device.
It's not a question of who, but where. East Germany sealed off the borders to West Berlin.
It's not gonna happen.
Four principal West German access corridors.
People are crazy, but not that crazy.
I don't believe this is happening.
We have a massive attack against the U.S. at this time, ICBMs. Over 300 missiles inbound now.
Either we fired first and they're going to try to hit what's left. But they fired first and we just got our missiles out of the ground in time.
This is not an exercise.
Takes you beyond imagining, beyond tomorrow, and into the day after.
We need more nuclear. We need another one of those movies. We really do. We really do. The dumb kid gets blinded by looking at the mushroom cloud. Donald Trump looked at a fucking solar eclipse. Donald Trump looked directly into a solar eclipse. So yeah, a lot of people are going to get blinded. Extremely relevant meme from Hasan chatter. Jesus Christ. You simply do not have the high European IQ to understand my highly nuanced takes, such as arming ultra-nationalist neo-Nazi groups won't ever cause blowback, and nuclear war isn't all that bad. As a European myself, this is of course nothing new to me. Wait, hold on. So let's read this entire thing, because I don't want people to say that I cherry-picked. I'm going to read his entire message, and we're going to debunk every part of it. So apparently Hasan called me a Nazi following my recent video on the Gravel Institute. Here's the clip of it. Now, I don't want people to give Hasan too much shit because of this. I understand he's under a lot of stress. Lots of people have been piling on him, and me included, over his Ukraine takes. If you're one of those people piling on you on Hasan because of the Ukraine takes, you are a fucking clown. Such takes of his are the product of his simplistic American lefty streamer bro views being thrown into the vortex of nuance that is Europe. The vortex of nuance. Now, Adam something. What do you think of Roma, or what do you think of the gypsies in Roma, Adam something? Please tell me the vortex of nuance. See, the vortex of nuance means when a European does a racism, it's nuanced. Worse, a European armed conflict. As a European myself, this is of course nothing new to me, which is why I've been able to make detailed, nuanced points even when it comes to actual neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Instead of the expected knee-jerk dismissal and denunciation. First of all, dipshit, America is the people that are arming and training your neo-Nazis. So if anything, we're the most nuanced, okay? America has been creating your far right and funding it and giving it weapons before you were alive, Adam something. Go take a look at what we did to Greece. We supported literal Nazis and neo-Nazi and Nazi collaborators so that they could prevent Greece from having socialist government. All right? We funded a civil war in Greece. So trust me, we're way ahead of the game. And there was just a report from the CIA, from Yahoo News. They just published a report that we've been training the far-right militias since at least 2014. So, excuse me, you're a Hungarian. You don't do much in the world stage except yell at innocent refugees. So please stop, Hungarian. People who aren't familiar with the complexities of Europe and Ukraine, and especially the current war, might find those takes of mine scary at first, which I understand. Disingenuous people might even say I was defending Nazis in my video on the Gravel Institute. This, of course, is not the case. People who say that are either lying or haven't watched the actual video. He supported it in the video. Hasan didn't mean to insult me. He simply reached the narrow limits of his understanding of the world, and since that couldn't control the resulting emotional outburst made up of fear, confusion, and frustration. So in other words, this guy who used to be alt-right and is famous because he said Elon Musk is not that smart, thinks he's smarter than Hasan because his nuanced take is give weapons to Nazis. Incredible brain. Incredible brain he has. For all these years, he and others like him were able to surf the waves of Bernie Sanders, a person with an actual overarching political philosophy and nuanced worldview. By attaching themselves to Bernie's correct points, these commentators were able to conceal that all their views are just a variation of 3 to 4 half-baked disjointed claims. Okay, so he's saying that Hasan only has 3 or 4 half-baked disjointed claims. What are those? What are those half-baked disjointed claims? Obviously, so this is all just insults and rhetoric. There's nothing to refute here. Lay out the claims. Lay out what and show quotes of Hasan making those claims. Or else you're just a lying sack of shit. This isn't even criticism. This is just bullshit. Projection times 1,000 is correct. Bro, you are dumb. You're fucking dumb, Adam something. You are dumb. The whole thing is Hasan is dumb, LOL. Exactly. And the reason why people can get away with this is because Hasan is a humble guy, and he admits when he doesn't understand something, or when he's not confident in something. He's not confident in something unless he really knows it, which most content, unfortunately, on the internet, saying you're not sure or you need to learn more means you're stupid. I'll give you a perfect example of this. When the Hong Kong protests were happening, I was like, well, I don't really know enough about the internal Hong Kong politics to give you an outright endorsement of the protesters, but I support their right to protest. And people said that I was being supportive of the Chinese Communist Party. These fuckers have no idea the history of Hong Kong, but they're the experts because they just support whatever's on the TV. By attaching themselves, trying to scale these views to an issue more complex, the U.S. domestic affairs has been a disaster, unsurprisingly. With the war in Ukraine, Hasan, like many other American lefties, was brought to a humiliating realization: USA bad is not a political philosophy. That would be interesting if somebody said that, you fucking dipshit. You fucking moron. You complete idiot. Nobody said USA bad as a political philosophy. What we said is the US is a capitalistic hegemon imperialist power. And because it's the global superpower, the hyperpower, we have way more ability to do harm in the world. And so we do more harm in the world objectively. That's facts. Does that mean that no one else does harm? Of course there are people doing harm. Mostly with our fucking support. Most of the world's bad actors were either created by the United States or are actively supported.
Levitz is really going for it here as he auditions for, like, you know, the Jonathan Chait chair at New York Magazine, is this idea that, like, yeah, they all took it on the chin because of Iraq. And what they really want, the ideological, limberness that they're going for here is this sweet spot of just being like, yes, America has done some very evil things in very recent memory, but Russia is actually more evil than the United States. And what we're seeing, what they're doing to Mariupol right now, or like they're bombing hospitals full of people, like, shouldn't that be proof positive enough that there are still countries more evil than the United States?
Give us a break, come on.
And I'm saying no. Sorry.
No.
Like at the very best, I'm willing to say that we are about as evil as Russia is, but the only problem is we're a lot more powerful.
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, every government is pretty much equally evil in that all of the incentive structures and power structures pull the worst people into positions of power and kind of cannot allow anyone else to hold power. The only real differentiation is the degree to which they can assert power over others, and that's where the actual, like, execution of evil does. And since we're the most powerful country, by definition we're the most evil. Sorry.
And they don't want to give up the ghost on, like, you know, like the 90s era of America, like post-Cold War, having to have a reason for why we're still a military hegemonic power, and that is humanitarian intervention. They still don't really want to give up the ghost on that because they don't want to
protect, baby.
They don't want to give up. I mean, even if you believe that, like, it's horrible that, like, you know, genocides and abuses against civilian populations occur, they can't give up the ghost on this idea that, like, well, America, we always mean well. You know, like, it's just like we just.
But we don't, Chad. And this is where the childish brain of the liberal, American liberal, we don't mean well. We don't mean well in Yemen. We don't mean well in Bolivia. We didn't mean well in Honduras. We didn't mean well in Chile. We didn't mean well in Brazil. We don't mean well. We don't mean well. We are trying to gain an advantage for our corporations, for capitalists, and to build a neoliberal regime where we force countries to open up their markets for our exploitation. They don't want to have free trade among equals. They want to have unlimited access to your assets for our exploitation and ownership. That's what we're there to do. That's the regime we're enforcing on the world, is neoliberalism. So if you're on the left, you are in opposition to the United States' stated foreign policy. Now, exactly how hostilely we engage with your country depends on all sorts of geopolitical factors. The United States is probably not going to invade Norway because they have a government-owned oil company and they have a lot of social democratic policies, right? But if you take that same shit and move it to South America, well, then you've got a Venezuela. Okay? Then we will interfere and try to overthrow your government and sanction you and send the CIA in. And I'm sure we're doing everything we can in Norway to make sure that the more liberal parties succeed and the social democratic and democratic socialist parties fail. I have no doubt we're doing our best behind the scenes to influence Norway toward a more right-wing direction. But in Venezuela, we're actively creating human misery as a goal. Because we want our oil companies to have access to that oil. And we want Venezuelans to work for nothing. Got it?
Do some good in this world with the power.
But all the bad that we're supposed to be fighting, that we're morally obligated to fight, is all in the context of a global order that we enforce.
Yeah. No. People say they hate Subway. You made the sandwich.
By the way, Chad, this is what real leftists sound like. You can pretty much tell how worthless somebody is based on their opinion of Chapo. If somebody doesn't like Chapo, they're probably fucking garbage. There is a certain psychological pitfall where if someone sees someone doing an action or engaging in a apparent path that they agree with, they associate their reasoning, philosophy, and expectations with that actor. Like Hitchens assuming that George W. Bush deposing Saddam was somehow going to achieve Trotsky's liberation to the people of Iraq. Well, he had an obsession. He was an anti-theist and he saw radical Islam as the biggest threat of the 21st century, right? And so he allied opportunistically with Bush because he believed Western values were what allowed him, a free thinker like him, to survive and thrive. Whereas he would not be allowed to have his views in a similar Islamic society, right? So Hitchens adopted the bullshit, the rhetoric of the neoconservative movement of regime change and nation building and the spreading of democracy when it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. It was the United States wanted access to Middle Eastern oil. We wanted to exert pressure on Iran. We're still mad that we lost BP's oil fields in Iran. We want them back. We want control of Iraq's oil. We want to protect Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. We want that goddamn oil. And we're going to do what we need to do to get it. Norwegian here. 8 more years of a right-leaning party royally fucked us. Budget cuts and most public service under the guise of effectivizing it. I'm sure the U.S. was proud to help do that. If you want to see some Chapo video content, check out Matt's live streams. They're on the YouTube channel. Matt's live streams are probably the worst. Man, they make my production look good. Let's keep going. As a European myself, which is why I've been able to make... Okay. Let's talk a bit about nuclear war. As the invasion falters, Putin will be making more and more nuclear threats. The only thing he has left, those will most likely be just that, threats. I doubt him or the Russian elite is suicidal. If it came to nuclear war, Russia would essentially be deleted from the face of the planet, while the West would generally survive in some form or another. We just talked about why this is totally wrong. Russia is much more likely to survive in one form or another than most of Europe, especially Western Europe, because, Russia has 11 time zones. You're not deleting Russia. Consider how much of our media dealing with nuclear war takes place during the Cold War. This is one of the most embarrassing sentences I've ever seen put to print. If you ever seen me go, let me make a serious argument. Consider video games. You should probably just delete the sentence. Probably one of the most embarrassing sentences ever put to print. At that point, we did have enough nukes to format the planet. However, ever since then, we've decommissioned 80%. We talked about this earlier. We literally used to have tens of thousands of nukes because we didn't have a sufficient early warning system. So we needed to have a sufficient stockpile to survive a nuclear first strike, an attempted decapitation strike, so that we could do a strategic response and so by having 10,000 nukes, we had mutually assured destruction. So that prevented and made it a bad decision to try to go for a nuclear first strike. Okay? But since we do have the new advanced early warning detection systems, including satellites that detect rocket launches on the entire planet, we have the ability to react in time with less nukes. But we still have thousands of nukes, and we have them in nuclear cruise missiles, bombs. We have deep submarines. We have nuclear submarines, and we have ICBMs, land-based. All right? And that's enough to format the planet. We have 4,000 and they have 4,000. Even a significant fraction of that would delete the planet as far as human advanced civilization goes. But Mike, the nuclear powers used to have enough nukes to destroy everything more than 20 times. Now it's only 5 times, so everything is fine, right? Great Hungarian logic. Yeah, absolute idiocy. But, I mean, Viktor Orban is the president of Hungary, so, you know. Well, how can I argue with his superior European brain? Also, not all of our nukes are ICBMs. Okay, first of all, strategic nuclear bombers launching cruise missiles are just as effective as ICBMs. You fucking clown. Also, nuclear submarines. Have you covered the Kremlin statement ruling out nuclear weapons against Ukraine? Yeah, not yet. We're going to get to that. Russia has to blanket the whole of Europe and the US, possibly more. Well, they have 4,000 nukes. So take the 4,000 top cities in Europe and the United States, and how many people do you think are dead? You fucking idiot. This is a guaranteed death sentence for the Russian elite, including Putin. Hence, I don't think he'll press the button. Or even if he tried, he'd end up with a hole in his head. Yes, mutually assured destruction is a good idea. Really, great idea. Let's all have thousands of nukes, because if we use the nukes, they'll delete us. Yes, except for the part where we're in an active conflict zone, and the president just said he wants to remove Putin from power, do regime change in Russia. Now suddenly, the existential threat becomes real for the Russian elite. The odds of, we can't pull out of this Ukraine situation because it means we're all going to get killed. That means nuclear war is more likely. You fucking clown. Also, misinformation, mistake, misinterpretation of ambiguous moves, escalation, loose nukes, rogue deployment. There's all sorts of stuff that could escalate nuclear exchange. My God, dude. It's also glorious how he first accuses Hasan of having simplistic takes because America equals bad takes, and then claims superiority as a European because Americans equal bad. I mean, he's a Hungarian. That's probably one of the worst countries in Europe. Legitimately one of the worst countries in Europe. With one of the most racist presidents in the fucking planet, who's reviving national conservatism, chat. National conservatism. What's that? It's Nazism, except socialism isn't popular on the right anymore. The phrase socialism isn't mass popular like it used to be. So now they call themselves national conservatives. But they're fucking fascists. This is especially true to Russia, as they would be deleted long before any of those warheads would be used. This is what's wrong. So Russia has strategic bombers, right? Let's in the situation where nuclear release is probable, Russia puts their heavy nuclear bombers on alert. They load the weapons on the planes. The planes launch and start flying. Rockets are exchanged. The bombers get the strike order. They fly over the fucking pole and launch their cruise missiles and drop dummy bombs. So, yes, the missiles are great, but they also would do that. They wouldn't just sit there at the airfields getting nuked. You know, that's that early warning system I talked about earlier. He hates Orban, but I get your point. Well, you can't say America bad while your fucking president is Viktor Orban. Your Hungarian brain didn't... the superior Hungarian brain didn't stop them from electing a fascist. Fucking idiot. Anyway, keep going on. So this is just wrong. He doesn't know anything about... And again, why would a human being who's normal know about this shit? I unfortunately do. For a variety of personal reasons and life experience reasons, I know a lot about strategic nuclear shit. Another thing to consider is how those strikes will be distributed. Russia has to blanket the whole of Europe, blah, 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 blah. Hence, okay. Blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, radiation from nuclear bombs dissipates very quickly. It depends on the bomb and weather conditions and whether it's airburst or ground burst. And there are weapons that are called salted nuclear weapons that are intentionally designed to create radioactivity. So this is just wrong. This is just wrong, dude. Also, the 72 hours thing, again, they're going to have submarines. Maybe they'll hold their nukes for 72 hours. Fucking dummy. The idea that, oh, you could just go to a sturdy building and you're going to survive? You're fucking stupid. Food and drink in closed containers. I don't know about you, chat, but I don't have enough water stored to last me for 10 years. So I would have to drink from water source from what? Groundwater? Surface water? Oh, it all has nuclear fallout in it? Great plan, idiot. Also, and this, I had to say it again, in the situation where we have a strategic nuclear exchange of thousands of nukes, all our nuclear plants are going to melt down. It's going to be Chernobyl times 500. Good luck. To sum up, Putin will threaten with nukes, but it's unlikely he will actually use them. Even if he does, though, the world won't end. Plus, your chances of survival aren't bad if the bomb wasn't dropped directly on you. Philadelphia has 12 nuclear weapons targeted at it. I'm deader than a doornail. No matter how much I bury my head in the basement. You fucking dummy. But Mike, don't you know there's some deep sea fish on vents, on volcanic vents at the bottom of the trench that are still alive? Technically, life wasn't deleted from the planet. I love when people change for the better and leave the alt-right. I don't love it when people who were watching Sargon of Akkad vids while I was covering the US arming Nazis tells me I simply cannot think in a nuanced way about such things. I mean, Hasan has been talking about this. Really weird. This is really weird stuff. Do people not understand what a nuclear exchange would look like? Civilization ceases to function. We can barely handle a couple of months of reduced activity because of a pandemic. By the way, chat, the show Jericho, they only like detonate like 8 nukes. And it basically destroys America. There's an inside, I don't want to spoil the show, but it's so old, fuck you. Basically, there's like an inside cabal of right-wing conservatives, and they decide they want to destroy the federal government and like reformat America. So they do an inside job with the intelligence services, and they detonate like 7 nukes. And it causes America to like collapse. That's like 7, not 7,000. Who the fuck even has the means or resources to have food and water stored away? People live paycheck to paycheck in the real world. Adam SS leftist. I mean, his shit was so dumb. I went through the whole thing. It's dumb from beginning to end. Adam, you're not smart.